Hey, Laura, I got a joke for you. So she was asking about a joke. So did you hear about the two antennas that got married? The wedding was terrible, but the reception was spectacular. Ching. Come on, remember back the iPhone antenna gate? So you got to forgive me. As Laura mentioned, I'm substituting in for our CEO, and I was doing a day trip yesterday. So I woke up at 4 in the morning, flew from Portland to San Francisco, didn't bring anything except my phone, and got the call, hey, CEO is down for the count. We need you to fly to New York on a red eye. So with nothing more than my phone and scratch pad, I jumped on a plane, flew all night, got here. So I'm a little out of whack, but hopefully I can kind of kick off with a few themes that will be useful for the day and for tomorrow as well. I want to make sure the slides are up here. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. So, the theme here is putting location into context. We've been hearing about location for a long time. There's certainly a lot of progress that's been made, but we still feel there's a ways to go and massive opportunity in what we're going to see happen here over the next few years. So I want to start with a very specific anecdote. So Urban Airship put on an event at South by Southwest called Mobile Saturday. It was basically, we ran the official programming for mobile at South by Southwest, and so our business is push notifications and app messaging. We also have a digital wallet product. So, but we're known as the push notifications guys, and we've delivered almost 100 billion notifications. So we've seen a lot of things happen. This was interesting. So they were using, South by Southwest was using our platform, and basically you'd go in and you'd look at, in their app, different sessions, favorite those sessions, then you could get a notification 15 minutes before the session was starting. A pretty common use case. But what was interesting is what happened Saturday night at 10:47 p.m. We were out celebrating a very successful day, and we got a notification from the app. So we looked at it. Oh, good, they're using the platform, awesome. But then we looked at what they actually had written. Heads up, there's a thunderstorm heading to Austin. It'll be here around midnight. Be careful out there. So this was not what we expected, because this had nothing to do with their content. This had nothing to do with their event. What they had done is they saw this Texas-sized storm bearing in on Austin, realizing that there's 50,000 people, most of whom don't have any orientation to Austin at all, scattered out drinking at the bars, and there's a massive storm heading out. So potential calamity for a lot of people. And it was a really nice night, and people were out in the streets. So they turned to this new technology to say, hey, the best way we could possibly reach these people that are here in Austin right now is to send out this notification and give them a heads up. It was the guy that kind of came up with the idea was sort of a hero on their staff, because he had thought about this kind of out of the box thinking, like, let's take this technology and, we can't send an email. We couldn't try to call people. So this was the best way they could reach people. And it got a lot of people out of harm's way. So it's just a great example of what is so exciting about what we're all doing now is we're doing things today that were never before possible. There would be no way to reach 50,000 people out drinking in 200 different bars and give them a heads up. But now we can. So it's really exciting. So, our world is mobile, and I realize that not everybody here is potentially sitting in just mobile. We hear a lot of people, we talk to a lot of big brands. So we do things like we deliver breaking news headlines for USA Today. We deliver sports scores for ESPN. We work with lots of major retailers. We do daily deals for Groupon. And, so as we talk to a lot of these big brands, they're talking about how much money they're putting into mobile and saying, yeah, of course it's crazy important. We get it. We're looking to move our budget from 5% to 10% eventually. And it's certainly important. And, we're biased, of course, but we think that it's not just another channel. It's got to be viewed as the most important channel. And, we use this sort of tidal wave metaphor. We live in Portland where there's a lot of earthquakes, and there's this big theoretical earthquake happening anytime. The tidal wave is actually on its way. So it's racing towards us right now. And the companies that don't figure it out will be swept up by the new things we're seeing. And we're already seeing that happen with some of the new business models that are fundamentally changing entire industries. So, it's really kind of time for a major wake-up call in the brand world, and it's a little scary about how slowly they're moving because the fact that, this is such a revolution driven by the customer. The reason why mobile is so massive is because of the engagement metrics. The customers are driving it. So if you look at overall internet traffic, we're seeing mobile is going to hit about 25%, and that's global traffic. So when you start breaking that down into geographies or into demographics, a lot of businesses, this is much more pronounced. So if you think about like China, they've already hit the point where mobile traffic surpassed traditional web traffic. It's also hit in South Korea. So it's just a matter of time before this starts reaching every other geography slowly and surely, like a tidal wave rolling in. It's going to start taking out top position in other markets. Howard Schultz last year at the very beginning of the year said this, which was there's a seismic change in consumer behavior that's linked to social and mobile. And he said, the level we're putting into mobile is absolutely critical, the commitment we're making. So, what was so awesome about this is that here you have the CEO, of one of the biggest brands that's come about during our era, our lifetime, who sells coffee, saying that the number one thing to their company is mobile. And the reason, I don't think it's a coincidence that Starbucks is one of the top mobile commerce companies in the world, doing billions of dollars in mobile commerce. When you have the CEO saying this is the top priority, things get done. And this is the kind of approach we need to see happening at other companies. We need to see the very high ranks of the companies get it. It can't be side projects. We're out of the mode where, 2 or 3 years ago, it was okay to, hey, let's put an app out there and see what happens. Let's just try some stuff. Companies need to realize that this has to be a top initiative, or they're going to really be in trouble. So, folks, welcome to the mobile majority. That's what we consider this, where it's kind of the wake-up call when companies wake up and realize that over half their business is now massively influenced by mobile, and if they're scrambling to catch up, they're really digging themselves out of a hole. So in this mobile majority world, we're into the point now where time spent on mobile devices is just about equal to time spent on TV, which is just mind-boggling. For those of us that have been in the marketing world for a while, TV spend was just untouchable. There's just nothing that would ever rival this. And we're going to see the point where this will, in the next year or two, take over, and we're going to see TV become the second engaged channel. And we're seeing companies come up with really creative ways. So, we all know about the second screen phenomenon. One of the earliest adopters was BET. They came out and they said, look, we know that our customers are sitting there watching our shows with an iPad or their phone in their hand, and there's just not, there's two things we can do. We can actually embrace it, or we can try to get them to put it down and say, hey, don't be distracted, watch BET and nothing else. Well, they realized that was a losing battle. So they started embracing the technology, bringing it into the shows. Things like, hey, we've got performers that come on, favorite some of your performers, and we'll send you a push notification when that person's about ready to come on the show. It drove lots of incremental viewers. One of the other things they did that was really cool is you could log in and you could actually be connected to the personality through your device. So they had a map of everybody logged in throughout the country, and this is Nicki Minaj. She could point and say, let's call that person. And they would use that channel to call that person sitting in their house, and all of a sudden that person's on a TV show. Just that promise was incredibly exciting. It's those kinds of innovations that I think are taking this to such a degree where it's this flywheel effect where, because of these cool technologies and these new capabilities, more people are embracing it. So just an example of how innovation and thinking about how do you embrace this new mobile majority versus trying to compete against it can really drive success. ESPN, they shared with us that on opening weekend of NFL, well over 50% of their traffic was through mobile devices. Paddy Power, which is a massive company in Europe, same thing. Over half their traffic's coming through mobile. They've crossed over now the mobile majority. In retail, online, we're almost to the point where half that time is spent on mobile devices. So huge influence. And now we all know about showrooming and the fact that people are taking their devices with them. 72% of Fortune companies are implementing new strategies now. So they're getting it, hey, we better figure something out here. And that's certainly sort of a gold rush to figure out what they need to retool for their business. And more than half of them are thinking about location, which is great because we fundamentally believe that location is what's going to be a huge driver. In this new world, apps reign. So Flurry data has proven time and time again that what consumers are doing on their phones is predominantly spending that time in apps. 80% of that time, over 20% on the mobile web. And what's interesting is when people do showroom, 65% of shoppers said it made them buy the product. So it's not always a negative. It can be very positive. And we're seeing some really cool innovations about companies allowing you to buy on your device and pick it up right there in the store. So get rid of that waiting in line thing. I think we're going to see the whole concept of a checkout. So the physical checkout counter is gone within a decade in most cases. So the most valuable real estate today on the planet is that smartphone screen. And the real challenge for companies is how do you get your piece of that real estate? It's all about location. That's the location that matters today, is the smartphone home screen or the tablet home screen. So, there's this real big opportunity, and we're seeing brands continually sort of miss it or not getting it yet. What's really awesome about mobile, if you boil it all up, sort of the three biggest strategic differentiators. The number one thing is that the consumer has curated their brand experiences. They've decided which brands get to live on their phones or their tablets. And right now, the consumer on average has about 100 apps on their iPhones, according to Apple. So that's still a lot, but think about all the brands out there. Now they're, at least you're on the device. And that customer is carrying you around all the time. You're always addressable. This is kind of our world, is the push messaging world, which, we counsel our customers to realize that when you send a notification out, you're likely interrupting somebody. They're doing something, they're having a conversation, they're reading their kid a bedtime story, they're walking down the street, they're in a meeting. Yesterday I was sitting on a panel in San Francisco, and I got a push notification from a customer. It's like, that interrupted me on the panel. So it's massive responsibility, and you have to treat it as such. If you don't, the repercussions can be severe. Customers will delete your app faster than they'll turn off the push notification. But this is an amazing opportunity because the customer is saying, hey, I trust you enough that you can send me this message anytime, any place. You feel like you can make my life a little better. And then the last thing is location. So, and I'll talk more about this, but we really feel like we're scratching the surface of what location could do. And we see customers today really thinking about things like, hey, let's just build in a mobile search strategy and wait for the customer to search for us and click and come to our mobile website. That's just taking sort of a desktop experience and bringing it to a smaller screen in a lot of cases. And then once they come, let's just catch and release. So they leave and they're gone. And now we have to wait for them to come back. And then next time we're going to pay again to find that same customer. It doesn't make sense. When you could have that customer walking around with your app, you wouldn't need to have that approach. And then we see isolated reactions to current locations. So geofencing, has been around for a while. There's some problems with that. There's some opportunities with it as well. But just looking at where that customer is right now and thinking that that's the context you need to deliver a message is not really enough. So, location is what makes mobile so exciting. I mean, location is what's fundamentally different. And the reason why it's so great is because the consumer carries these devices everywhere. Unlike any other media channel in the past, we now have access to real-life movements of billions of customers. And we're just starting to scratch the surface of what this will mean. The downside of this is what we call advertising. So advertising is blasting messages out. So just because I'm standing next to a hot dog stand doesn't mean I have any interest in eating a hot dog. So don't pummel me with a message every time that happens. And so, the data shows that while 3/4 of smartphone owners will get real-time location information, a lot of folks turn it off. And we heard that there's going to be a panel on this later, which is great, due to privacy concerns. So we're still not convincing the consumers what's in it for them to share location in all cases. And a lot of apps, more than half, have accessed users' location without letting them know. This is a terrible idea. People are running their lives through these devices, and they won't tolerate any breach, anything unknown to them. They really have no tolerance for it. But what's interesting is that 43% of mobile customers will share personal information for loyalty compared to, just about 1/4 of typical online adults. So mobile audiences are predisposed to sharing information if there's value. So we need to take advantage of this new incredible opportunity that location represents, but we have to do a heck of a lot better than what we've been doing today. It all starts fundamentally with whatever you're doing has to improve the customer's life. So if you're not building this in for delivering value to the consumer, then your perspective's off. So you have to change that perspective and think about, does this enhance the customer's life, not our life? Because that's the only reason a customer will keep your brand on their device, is you're making their life better. If you're not, they can get your marketing messaging anywhere else. They'll throw you off the device. So new utilities are coming out, right? So Passbook and the advent of boarding passes is it's a convenience thing. It's like, hey, I drive into the airport, this thing knows my location, it serves up my boarding pass on my screen. That's awesome. One of the earliest adoption categories for Passbook, and now Google Wallet has the same thing, which is great. And we've worked with Alaska to be the first airline across both Google Wallet and Passbook, and they've seen tremendous adoption on this. New conveniences, so now you get in the airport, knowing you're in the airport, brands like Chipotle can say, hey, we know you're in the airport, we're going to drive you to a certain value prop, versus just Chipotle down the street in your house, because you're a captive market when you're in an airport. You only have so many options. And serving the customer along the journey. I mean, it's funny, when I got the call about coming here with nothing, completely ill-prepared, it wasn't daunting because I had my phone. I was like, you know what, I can take care of anything I need with this smartphone, my iPhone. And so, there's things like apps. There's an app in London now called City Mapper that will send you a push notification as you're riding the bus when it's time to get off at your stop. Amazing little things that, again, little things like that make people say, this is awesome, I'm going to tell everybody I know, it goes viral, and next thing you know, they got 5 million downloads. That kind of thing happens all the time. And creating frictionless experiences, right? Uber is probably one of the best examples of this, where it's just such a great experience when you do it, not having to dig for a wallet and do that 5-minute checkout, and the guy scowls at you because you're paying with a credit card, and you just hop out now, hop out of the car and you go, and that's the kind of thing that's so great. Or when, one application for geofencing that does work well is in the hospitality world, where you walk into a big hotel and they send you a notification saying, hey, welcome to their property. Here's kind of a map or a layout, or here's how you get to check-in, etc. That's a good experience, and that is frictionless. And offering value in exchange. So it's this, we call this mobile relationship management for a reason, because it's about the consumer sharing data, you taking that, serving them back something helpful. They build a trust in you, they share more data, you show them that with that we'll even delight you more, and all of a sudden it's this virtuous cycle building a really strong relationship. So one other thing that's interesting about location is we can start doing the impossible. Things that you could never do. I mentioned the South by Southwest example. London Olympics last year, they were our first location history customer, and they were doing things like, they came to us and said, we want to send a notification into not just Olympic Village, but only people sitting in opening ceremonies, and we want to send them a special commemorative photo of the lighting of the Olympic torch. So talk about precision. Right? Not just London, not just Olympic Village, but only the people inside the arena. And it happened, it worked. And they delighted a lot of people who felt really like they were really special. But they were also doing things like, hey, let's hit all the people that were at the track and field event a couple days ago, and let's send them a survey and ask them how their experience was. Tremendous uptake. They saw a 10 times response rate from that effort than email, which email's been around for 25, 30 years. So people are adopting and figuring this out really quickly. So I think the core message here is the big paradigm shift is that this can't feel like marketing. It has to feel like you're serving the customers. Walgreens, great example. They let you fill up your prescription, send it to your local Walgreens, and they send you a push notification when it's ready to pick up. The most brilliant marketing in the world, because you walk in, and now instead of spending 10 minutes standing in line, you can spend 10 minutes walking around the store, and the average basket order size goes up. Super smart marketing. Customer thinks it's a great service. It's a huge win-win. Delighting your users with content. So Starbucks, Starbucks has been the perennial poster child for what will be wrong in the future of the mobile world, right? We've all heard about the Starbucks getting blasting offers at us. Well, they're not doing that. They're not doing anything close to that. They're doing things like, let's give away free integrated music downloads. Integrate with iTunes and allow you to have a great library. I have 47 songs on my iPhone now, courtesy of Starbucks, and most of them are really good songs, and I haven't paid a penny. I just downloaded their app. That delights people, and it's tremendously successful for them. So what's really important to think about this in terms of location and how do we serve our customers is that it's collective data. It's everything we know about this customer that matters. It's everything they've told us they want. So putting in preference centers into apps is a tremendous way to get more people to participate. People will curate their experience because they care so much about these devices. You can bring in the behavior, so you can look at what they've done inside your app, and you can bring that in. Have they looked at men's clothes, women's clothes, baby clothes? That will tell you a ton. You can integrate it with data from CRMs or point of sales, and then you can take where they are right now, but even more importantly, where have they been? Because that's really the context that matters. Is this the first time you've seen them or the 5th time you've seen them in the last week? That's going to drive a completely different conversation. Abercrombie & Fitch with their Hollister brand, they take location to the point where, hey, their customers will scan different products in their store. And it's creating a really strong preference graph for them, right? We know exactly what this customer wants in certain locations. It's a great opportunity to engage. And the ability to take this concept of location history, so storing people's locations over time, and then use that to deliver back what's really just good old-fashioned customer service. But things like, rather than sending a geo-fenced blast message to somebody who happens to be near your store, think about sending a notification let's hit everybody that's been in our store within the last 6 months, but not the last 6 weeks, who've shopped for certain products, and let's make the offer more valuable based on how far away they are. So if they're going to drive an hour, we better make it really worth their while. If they're going to drive 5 minutes or walk across the street, maybe that offer doesn't need to be as compelling. We can do this today, and 5 years from now, this will become routine. But today, this is really kind of cutting edge stuff. But this is the kind of thing that consumers will appreciate because it's so incredibly relevant to them. And things like iBeacons, so MLB has already been experimenting with iBeacons. So, this idea of micro location where, you walk up with their app to the box office and your ticket pops up. And then you walk in and you get a map to your seat. And then you're at your seat and you get an offer for a hot dog and a soda. Right? That's really good service. That's like a personal concierge during a baseball game. It's tremendous. And so that's the kind of thing we're going to see become very routine. And we're seeing this, museums and other venues are starting to get their heads around how can we take this experience inside and bring consumer delight to it. We also have the new thing, Apple just launched the M7 chip. So it's this idea of bringing in sort of motion and movement and feeding that back to apps. This creates a whole another arena within location and context to think about how can you take that new data set and use it to delight a customer, because if I'm walking one way or another, that's a completely different conversation you might want to have with me. And how fast am I going? Am I on foot? Am I in a car? It's all part of the relevant conversation. And it allows us to anticipate service opportunities. So if you think about a retail, consumer walking through a store and they stop and they pause in front of something, okay, that might be an opportunity to send a sales clerk over. Hey, this person has stopped in front of that 52-inch big screen, and they've been there about a minute. they might want somebody to come over and tell them what the deal is with that product. That's a tremendous opportunity to deliver service, especially in the era now where we have sort of fewer and fewer sales resources on the sales force. So I think, kind of to wrap this all together, what we need to get to is connecting all of the context out there. And we have all this data today. It can be overwhelming, it can be disorganized, but we're going to see the companies win who figure out how to bring this to bear, how to organize it, how to figure out what makes sense at what moment, and then reach out and delight that customer. Those companies are going to be the big brands that will be on stage in the years to come. So that's all I had. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the invitation from Street Fight, and I hope you guys have a great next couple of days. Thank you.